On today's episode of the Real Recovery Podcast, episode number 50, we are honored to welcome Lacy T, a seasoned radio veteran whose journey through addiction and recovery is as compelling as it is inspiring. Lacy takes us through her experience of navigating alcoholism in a world that often glorifies drinking, sharing the struggles of early sobriety, the power of connection, and the lessons that shaped her recovery. In this deeply personal conversation, Lacy also opens up about the heartbreaking loss of her brother to alcoholism, reflecting on the pain of watching a loved one struggle and the lessons it has reinforced in her own journey. Together, we explore the realities of relapse, the strength it takes to return to recovery, and the importance of community in healing. This episode is a powerful reminder that while recovery is deeply personal, no one has to walk the path alone.
Hello, and welcome to the Real Recovery Podcast. I'm Julie, your co-host. On this journey of healing and transformation, together with my co-host Peter, we dive into the heart of recovery, sharing stories that resonate with courage and inspiration.
That's right, Julie. Each episode is a new chapter in this vast narrative of recovery, and we're honored to bring them to you. But keep in mind, the perspectives you'll hear are for informational purposes only and may not reflect the views of the podcast or our partners.
Indeed, while these conversations can be a powerful part of your recovery toolkit, they are not substitute for professional medical advice. We encourage you to seek guidance from your healthcare provider for any treatment-related decisions.
And if you're facing an immediate crisis, or if you just need to talk to someone who understands, don't hesitate to call the Recovery Crisis Line at 503-223-85. The number is also on our website. Help is available 24/7.
Now let's begin our episode
of recovery, real recovery.
Welcome, Lacy, to the Real Recovery Podcast. I'm so glad you're here. I really am. I'm excited for you to share your story and just to be here.
Yeah, I remember I first met you, or was introduced to you in a way, was in the basement of the church where we now...
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
Where we were struggling along, trying to deal with the cold. And are we masking today? Are we separating today?
People were still masking and stuff.
Man. That's one of the great things about AA is we find a way to do it, no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually remember you from the other basement, the MCC basement.
Oh, of course.
Which is a long time ago. And
it's not that long ago.
It feels like it, but we share a passion for bucket hats as well.
We do.
Lacy has cuter ones than me, believe it. Yeah.
Debatable.
I don't know. So welcome to the Real Recovery Podcast. This is Julie.
And Peter.
And Lacy.
And we're in Studio H today, which is Peter's house.
Our Studio T, which is the trailer, which we might use sometimes.
And we've been to Studio 4D, which sounds a little exclusive, but it's not.
It's Studio J, Julie's place.
We have a lot of studios. I guess start at the beginning. The good thing about our podcast, there's no rules. There's no regulations. There's no 10-minute timer.
Yeah.
We just want you to feel comfortable like you're just kicking it with us at Peter's house.
Yeah.
That's the way. I was in radio for a long time, 40 years, and that's the best way to work. No matter what you're doing, you're talking to friends.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with it, no matter what.
When I started this, when I had the idea of when we got together, and then I was like, I don't want it to be like, okay, here's my 10 questions. I wanted it to be like you're a fly on the wall and you get to overhear a person's story. I wanted people to feel comfortable. That's why the living room is so nice. Hopefully it makes you feel comfortable.
It
like
does.
We're just having a chat.
It does, absolutely. Home with a capital H. I'd much rather be here.
Yeah, I personally love it here. This is the house we decided to do the podcast on Father's Day a couple of years ago. And yeah, it's just gone from there. We're going to be coming up on a year here in just a year.
Oh, I was thinking 6 months.
No, we've done 50 episodes. We haven't missed a Friday, which is like huge.
Yeah, it's been important for me to make sure I meet it because I knew this from being in the media world, and that you have to be consistent. And my idea was every Friday do a show. But then I started to hear feedback from people who are relying really on our shows to get them through. And so now we do a show every Friday that's a personal story. And then we have extras, which might be like we just had the advocacy day. We're going to talk about that. That's going to come out in a little bit. And then our check-ins where we talk about personal things that are happening and what's going on in our lives. And so we're actually doing more than a show a week, but it's a little more work. But you know what? I think it's been working out pretty good.
Yeah. And there's so much more out in just the world, the city at large about recovery. And when I started trying to get sober in the 80s, it was like, even in the 80s, it was you got to keep it really hush. And
it's been like that for me in my last job. I didn't feel comfortable to say I was.
But that was the overall just attitude of where most places that you lived in the country. I tried to get sober in Sedona, Arizona, and there was one meeting on a Wednesday night.
Wow.
And of course, you try to go to that one meeting.
Yeah.
But someone would be extremely, and I don't know if you have this experience, but when I was just starting, my mind wanted to hear things that would make me leave. Because I wanted it, but I didn't want it.
Yeah.
My alcoholic mind was struggling. It's the trying to get and keep a day, and you hear something and you go, no. And I would hear something very religious and go, I don't need this.
Same.
I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Same. There was a guy in the MCC group and he would be like, I don't have any problems. I just give them to God. And I would be like, isn't that nice? Seriously, I have a parole officer. Like, really? So I understand.
We live in a place where there are hundreds of meetings and there are choices and there are people of every background and every persuasion. And
I love that.
Yeah, it's really good. I felt like I landed in Portland and I didn't want to be in a city. And one of my early AA friends said, you're newly sober and there's so much here to help you stay sober.
Yeah.
We were talking about this yesterday. Peter and I launched the podcast. The official launch was at the North Coast Roundup. And I never realized, I knew we were blessed, but I never realized how blessed we were to other places until we went to the North Coast Roundup. There was people there from itty bitty towns that didn't have a place to go that they felt comfortable. And there was also gay people that didn't have, or people from the LGBTQ plus community that didn't have a place to go in their town.
Yeah.
And we thought, wow, how lucky are we? And especially our meeting, because you can be whatever you want to be in our meeting.
Yep.
There's no, I don't know. I feel like there's no sect denomination. We don't care who you sleep
no judgment.
with. Yeah. And we have, it's so diversified that it's a blessing. Mm-hmm.
But you did hit on something when you were talking about your alcoholic mind didn't want to look for, I'm not like these people. This is not for me. This is not the path that I'm going to take. Looking for any excuse in a way.
Exactly. And when I first started getting a month or 2 months and then relapsing a month, 2, 3 months, I got no support from my family. But they love me. My mother was very interested, but I had to tell her on the hush.
Wow.
And my dad called me Saint Lacy. There was this attitude that, whoa, wait a minute, you can do this on your own. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I could
We all
either.
tried a million times to do it on our own.
Yeah. And I think also, like in my family, the social hour, the happy hour, that was such an ingrained, almost a religious thing.
It was.
All the world evolved around happy hour. And so for someone to say this is an issue or a problem, I think from their point of view, they're thinking that it's like that maybe I have a problem, right? So they didn't want to associate the two because it might bring up maybe I'm having a little problem too, or maybe I'm
exactly. And that was what I got from my family. But being a kid in the 50s, dating myself here, it was like cocktail parties were the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And because people came out of the war and they had some money and cocktail parties and everybody drank and everybody smoked and there were all kinds of she cocktails and it was just the thing.
Yeah. It was like a celebrated, like you had this little cart that's all fancy.
Absolutely.
I still have an ode almost to my past, but my little cabinet there. But when I was drinking, martinis were my thing. And I hid that around my martini collection. So I had this big, and you could see some of the leftovers from that era. And now they're dessert glasses and vases, and the shakers make nice vases and things like that. But it's definitely a celebrated thing in our culture, which did not make it easy in the early days, especially for me with my family. Everything like, oh, let's toast the birthday. Let's toast the new year. Let's toast.
Oh, absolutely.
And it didn't matter what it was, just toast it. You know?
My mother was a bartender. Trust me. Every holiday we had was at 12 noon because she was bartending that night. Because that was big money night. New Year's, Christmas, believe it or not. Yeah.
Of course. Our family had wine at lunch.
Oh, wow. That's very European, isn't it?
I guess.
I was given a spritzer when I was little. It was okay to have a spritzer.
But this in the 50s was a sign of success, making it. You can afford to live a little, be elegant.
Yeah.
And have wine at lunch.
Ooh. I remember we had this is when I was in the corporate world, but we'd get East Coasters in because we did business West and East Coast. And they would have drinks at lunch. Like they would take us out maybe they're courting us for business, whatever. And I was like, whoa, there goes the rest of my afternoon.
I went to dinner at Ringside for a sprint meeting. And my boss purposely said, I'm sending you because I didn't drink. And let me tell you, whoa. Yeah, I just sat there and drank my Coke and was like, yeah, I was shocked. Mm-hmm.
The phrase a 2-martini lunch was created in the late 1950s.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about your upbringing and how you got to AA.
I don't want to make this too long.
Okay.
But we already covered that there was a lot of alcohol in my home. Mm-hmm. And my upbringing was a wonderful family home and a wonderful family and parents with very good values. There was a lot of alcoholism in the histories. 2 great-grandfathers who went off the deep end. And I knew from a very early age that, and in 8th grade, you don't say this, but I wasn't stupid. I had an idea that this wasn't brilliant. I had a little bar in my bedroom closet, and the little Dixie cup dispensers that we had back then, and I would fill them with all little bits of my parents' liquor cabinet. The babysitter was watching Lawrence Welk, and I was raiding the liquor cabinet. And I had all different kinds of liquor, from scotch to whiskey to wine to cream de menthe.
That fixes stomach ache, my mother would say.
But the thing was, yes, I made myself sick because I would start dabbling and then I would mix them all together and then I would throw up. And then if I had a girlfriend over, she would tell my parents that, oh, Lacy's sick, or Lacy ate too much cookie dough, which was another thing we did. And that continued in all other forms. But it never occurred to me until I was in my, I want to say 30s, that I needed to control this somehow. It was just something that my family did. My parents had New Year's Eve parties where it was just insane. I remember one, I heard some glass breaking and some screams, and I went into the living room and they decided to have Russian toasts. And so they were throwing champagne glasses over their shoulders into the fireplace. And my mother's friend Marion is running around trying to save the glasses before they were killed. It was nuts.
Yeah.
And this is what I thought was cool. This is what I
it's
thought
what you saw, yeah.
thought was adult. And for some reason, and I'm not going to go into the therapy of it, I always wanted more. But was it food? Was it male attention? Was it whatever the hell it was? I always wanted more.
Yeah.
And in those days also, it was really unusual for a kid to go to a counselor or a psychiatrist or anything like that. It was just merging on the time when people were starting to get help. And I went to college and I was living off campus with an older man within a month. And after a semester, I said, what happened? I don't know what happened.
Just curious, what school?
Denver University.
Okay.
And it snowed on September 28th, and all we did was go skiing. I got Fs. I called my parents, I have to come home. But the Fs and the man weren't the reason I had to come home. All of a sudden, I lost all the colors. I went into my first really deep depression and anxiety. And I hadn't yet started drinking crazily to provide medicine for the depression and anxiety. That came later. So I came home and my parents, I found out later, just assumed I was pregnant. It was 1969, baby. Sex, drugs, rock and roll. And I came home and then I stayed home for a year and worked with my dad, who gave me a really good start in what I ended up thinking about AA. He was an MD in a very poor neighborhood. He took me to births. He took me to deaths. He took me to help reset the leg of a prostitute on 22nd Avenue. He wanted me to see some of life.
Experience.
My family was pretty sick, but they had good ideas, and there are many things I appreciate. So I went to the next college, and it was LSD time, baby.
Oh, wow.
We had Frank Zappa. Liquid Kool-Aid was being passed around. So I almost flunked out of there, but I ended up going back and studying harder. But during this whole time, I was really starting to use alcohol. It was at least a bottle of wine a day, or drink so much beer. And the drinking age in Wisconsin was 18, that you basically spent your day in the bathroom.
Wow.
But I was starting to use it as to fix whatever, the anxiety, the depression. And it wasn't until my third, when I moved to Sedona, Arizona, that I knew something was dreadfully wrong. First of all, crazy promiscuity. And I don't care who sleeps with who. It's none of my business. There's no moral judgment. But I was just doing a lot of damage to myself. And I started trying to quit drinking. But I would have anxiety attacks. It works until it doesn't work.
Exactly.
And I had a number of radio jobs. And the one where I really started going over the deep end was WTSO in Madison. And I was on the air from 8 p.m. to midnight. And I'd left my husband, and he was just too nice. I needed more trouble. And I would get off the air at midnight, and the newsman, Mark, and I would dash to a bar, drink as much as we could. And that was the only way I could sleep.
Yeah.
Now, why I didn't wipe somebody off on the highway, oh, thank you, God.
Yeah.
Because I drove drunk for 13, 14 years.
Wow.
And in blackouts.
Wow.
And I basically left Sedona because I had completely trashed my life with alcohol and drugs. And I was one of maybe 6 geographics that I took.
Mm-hmm.
And some of your listeners might know what geographics are.
Yeah.
It's, oh, my life is a mess. I'm going somewhere totally different, and I'm going to start over.
Again.
And the assumption is, I'll be different.
And it'll be better. And
You bring yourself along wherever you go, there you are.
Mm-hmm.
I tried one of those. I left here when I was 21 to go back east. And my Nana said to me, whatever you're running from, it's not going to get better here.
No.
And I was like, how does she know? What does she know? Yeah.
My big one was to Chicago. And I went from Oregon, where you have to go to a liquor store and it's only open during certain times, right? To being able to go down 24 floors to the pantry anytime, day or night. And there's vodka right there for you. What was I thinking? On the surface, I was thinking, move, get away from the mess. But in the subconscious, I think it was, no one's going to know you there. You could do whatever.
There is that, but there's also when you have sober moments and when you're in the regret and self-recrimination of a hangover and you start remembering bits. I was taking flowers to bartenders the next day. I knew I did something awful, but I didn't know what.
Yeah. Oh
I knew I said something.
Yeah.
I was getting looks, and it was impressed on me very nicely. People were trying to be kind to me that I was one of the town drunks.
I know with my mother, she was the life of the party until a certain drink. And then she was mean. And I didn't know when that change would come. Being younger, it would go to, here's $5 to get ice cream from the ice cream man, to you're grounded. And I didn't know what I did and not understanding it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did that ever happen to you?
Yes. I remember that the day that St. Helens blew and we were all at the bar watching it, it was the first time that a bartender cut me off. And I basically thought I was going to I was in the midst of being charming and entertaining. And all of a sudden, nobody wanted me around.
Peter, did that happen to you?
Oh, yeah.
And you're just so easygoing. That's why.
It wasn't quantity. It was quantity, but it also depended on the liquor, like tequila. If I did tequila, people would tell me afterwards, never do tequila again. You are the biggest asshole after drinking tequila. Mm-hmm. It would just turn my personality. It's something about the chemistry of the alcohol. I don't know. And I could be the life of the party, like you were saying with your mother, up until a certain number of drinks. And then I would start to get, nasty. And how it was expressed to me by others was I became very disrespectful, condescending, nasty in that way.
Nasty. Oh, that word.
Yes.
My boss said, you were nasty last night. And me, sweet little people pleasing.
Yeah,
Lacy.
my mom was mean. I don't know about
Saint
nasty,
Lacy,
but she would get to a point where she was mean, so mean.
A personality change.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it scared me. I think I'm not a drinker, but I know I'm addicted. Trust me. But seeing it, I think, scared me so much. So I did meth instead, intravenously.
Well,
that was
the
my
blessing
option.
and the curse of drinking is the blackouts, because we're spared whatever happened, but then there was that anxiety that followed during the hangover and the next day where you're like,
it's grotesque. I mean, I left Sedona for Portland. I thought, I can't deal with the
fallout,
the feeling like, what did I do? And the anxiety. But my liquor was so upped, and it became toward the end of the idea that I could control it. I drink anything.
Yeah.
I drink apple schnapps. I drink wine. I drink champagne. I drink whiskey. If there was nothing else, I drink scotch. And that takes
was my
a toll.
mother's drink, Johnny Walker.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yes. I don't know whether it's the red label or the black label, but one of those is better than the other because she would get a lot of it for Christmas.
I would buy according to percentage. Towards the end, I would look to see what is the higher. If we were out with friends, my scan of the menu was what's got the highest alcohol content. If it was a beer,
that's interesting.
I could walk into a room like a party, and if it was a dinner, I'd know how many bottles were on the table, and I'd pick the color based on what I thought people were going to drink the least of, so there'd be more for Peter.
So you could have more.
Yes.
I got in a really bad car accident.
That's pretty smart, Peter.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Oh, I was a smart drunk to a point. Stupid smart drunk.
I got in a car accident that I should have been killed. It was called Dead Man's Curve between Sedona and Cottonwood. And I didn't have anyone with me. And for some miraculous reason, I didn't go off into all the car parts of prior accidents. I went across the highway and went into a cliff of sand. Wow. And I have the scars. And that stopped me drinking for about a week. But what really got my eyes open, even in all my sickness and crawling along my bottom, was I had my little stepdaughter with me. I was married at the time, wonderful man. And she was 4 or 5. And I would take her out. My husband was playing in a band. And I would take her with me. And she'd just sleep in the car. It was Sedona. It was really safe then. We didn't lock our doors. And one night I went out and I go, I'm left with the kid again. Get in the car. I'm going out. And I started driving up our hill. And there were 3 wavy middle lines.
Oh, boy.
And I had a kid sleeping in the back. And something, and it had to be my higher power, said, no, stop. This is a wall. You can't do this.
Yeah.
And I went back home. And no amount of liquor would stop me shaking because I knew I could have killed her.
Yeah.
Moments. Yeah. That's really,
but
really
even with
good.
those moments, for me, some of the situations, I still couldn't stay away.
No, I couldn't either. It did not keep me sober.
No.
But it got me to my first AA meeting.
Love that.
I mean, it got me somewhere.
You had that moment.
Yeah. And boy, I talked for a living. And bullshitters can bullshit themselves just as well as they can bullshit anybody else. My denial and my rationalization and my tomorrow I'll start this, not today.
Oh, yeah.
I know that well. Yeah, I know that well. And you're right. I talk for a living, whether it was at Sprint, on the phone, Hannah. So I know exactly what you're saying. And
I could justify anything.
Me too. And I think it took me a lot longer. I was in AA for a while before I actually knew I needed to be there. I thought I was just required to go there at first.
My first few serious attempts were not for the right reasons at all. They were where they were saving a job or trying to get out of something, some trouble coming down the way, those were the reasons. It wasn't until I got back here, if this is in Chicago, is when my addiction really took hold and was at its height. And then when I got back here is when I started to really do it for me and my life, because I could see how, and you lose stuff and you lose jobs, you lose your place. I lost
2 marriages.
Yeah. And you still, I think normally people would be like, what is wrong with you?
That is what informs everything that I think and do about recovery. And when I came here today, I said, I'm not going to make this, because I'm still so obsessed with it. My baby brother drank himself to death and he died October 6, 2021.
Oh my gosh.
Now he had a wonderful family, wonderful wife, daughters,
sister,
in and out and in a treatment. And I'm still grappling with what could I have said? What could I have done? And COVID didn't help because it just kept everybody apart from everything.
The isolation, which is the worst thing.
Yeah, that's part of why he went downhill. He was running a bunch of radio stations and he was alone in this building and hated it. And he was the years prior, there'd been personality changes, and he was just ripe in this lonely moment in this COVID era to start drinking alone.
Right.
And went downhill so fast.
I remember when you went to visit.
Yeah, we went to try and help him in August, and then again in October when he was in intensive care, not thinking that he would die, but when you sponsor people, you two have had much more to do with treatment centers and detox than I have as volunteers.
Oh, yeah. I'm a professional in or out.
But when you've mainly sponsored people like I have, it's if your sponsoree is going to go down and die of alcoholism, if their vital organs are going to stop, they're not anywhere near you. You haven't been able to get a hold of them for months. You've been knocking on their door trying to get them to open up to you. Yeah. But this was my brother. So this is in all my years of sobriety, I had never seen an alcohol death. I had never known that when you lose the liver and the pancreatic function, you have to have so many liters pumped out every day. It was horrendous. And it took me a couple years to think, why couldn't I have come up with some way to save him?
Yeah.
Peter and I talked about that today, right? And you can't. They have to want to do it.
I know rationally.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. You can lead them to the water, but you can't force them to drink. And recently having that experience with my child, I just made a suggestion. Thank God she listened when I said, and thank God she wasn't in it. You know what I'm saying? To where we're there. But I said, I think you're drinking too much and you come from two addictive parents. The chances of it hitting you are there. And she didn't drink all the time, but when she drank too much and she had alcohol poisoning. And I was like, that's like overdosing. I said, it's just overdosing on alcohol. And her father died of an overdose. And so you have it there and you see it and you want them to be successful, but you can't make them be successful. You can set hands on Gretel, the crumbs to the place for them to follow, but they have to want to do it. And I think she went to treatment, as she says, for the wrong reasons at first, but she said the second month it changed. And I understand. I went to AA to get off parole. And 6 months, I finally felt safe. So I stayed. I was scared to leave. I was scared I was going to fuck up somehow, some way. And thank God. Yeah. Just thank God.
My brother went to 2 treatment centers. This is during when they finally opened after COVID. He was in Wisconsin, and a number of treatment centers pooled together to keep one open physically.
Wow.
So he went for such a long time because he was determined to save his marriage. And he was like me. He was on radio. He could sell anything to anybody. And boy, did he learn the talk and and Julie and Peter, when he died, he was in an apartment. They'd gotten divorced. And I looked it up on my phone when I went and tried to help him. The AA club was a block and a half from his house.
Wow.
He didn't even have to drive.
Yeah.
I go, where is this? Is it? Oh my God, it's right there.
Yeah.
It's so mind-boggling.
It is.
This is why I almost always say when I share in meetings how grateful I am to be there.
Yeah.
Because it could have been me.
Could be any of us. Yeah.
I get emotional, right? And I think it is because my daughter's father died. I don't know why I got to stay, right? Michael had 7 years clean from when she was 3 to 10. He was sober after coming out of treatment. And why was I so lucky to stay and the next person isn't? And mind you, I am so grateful, especially when I get annoyed with people. Like some people, I'll be like, oh my God, this person's going out again. And I'm frustrated for them. But then I'm like, how blessed are you that you get to stay? And honestly, it doesn't matter what's going on in my life. I am now to the point knowing that I'm mentally healthy, right? And I'm sober and I have recovery, that all the rest of the stuff is irrelevant. They help my life go. But without those things, it's not going to go, period. And I was at a meeting with my daughter last night. The fact that she wants to go to a meeting with her fucking mom. I would have never gone to a meeting with my mom. And what were we at the other day too? Oh, we went to a meeting on Sunday at your place, ECAC. Talk about an experience. Anyway, we went there and the lady was talking about somebody overdosing. And I looked at her and I saw her face get red. I know she was thinking about her dad. And I just reached out and gave her a fist pump. And I said, not going to be just, and luckily she's never done a drug or narcotic. It's been alcohol. But how we get to stay.
It's really, I don't understand it.
Me either.
And what I've found out is I don't have to understand it. I need to keep coming back and work my program. I relapsed after 15 years in 2005. When I look back at that, I think, what? After what you went through to try and get the program, and I had stopped going to meetings. I was going to do my own spiritual program and thinking that I have a big mind.
You got it.
I was going to read all this spiritual literature, and I did, but I got away from the program.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a relapse like I was going out and doing old Lacy behavior, getting drunk and picking up guys. I decided with my big brain, and this is why whatever IQ you have, you can't be too smart for the program.
You can't outthink it. Yeah.
You can't outthink it. Is I am going to take this year and I am going to see if I can't drink appropriately. So this is 20 years before my brother died, but I come from an alcoholic family. It took me 6 years of in and out to get any time. And I decide, see, that's where my alcoholic brain gets me.
It puts it in such a high spot, the alcohol or whatever the addiction is in your head. And it's, I look at it, it's not, air is important, water is important, food is important. Alcohol is there's no importance to it. It serves no function.
No.
Same with cigarettes, man.
For you physically, or all it does is it replaces your being able to escape from whatever it is that you're trying to deal with. That's the only thing it does, and it doesn't do it very well.
And when I'm very blessed because I feel that the obsession to drink has been removed, but only if I work my program.
Yes. Yeah.
When I took that year to try and drink appropriately, I probably only had 3 or 4 drinks. But what happened was all I did was think about it.
Yeah.
Is it now? Is this appropriate? Is this not appropriate? And honestly, if you took a picture of my brain, any room for any spirituality or any real joy was overtaken again by the obsession to drink. And I wasn't even drinking heavy.
Yeah, for me, I'm lucky too. I do not have the obsession to use. I'm very blessed. But I will tell you, on the 25th year, I stopped going to meetings because I was working too much. And what I know for me is that, one, I get overwhelmed and I think incorrectly. And what I mean by that is when I don't go to meetings on a regular basis and something difficult is coming up, I will ruminate about it. It really took me going to IOP 25 years sober. Most people go to get off the drugs to know what my addictive thinking was like.
I remember that, Julie.
Yeah. And it was, I have to tell you, and then I went back a year later. The first time the doctor had said to go, and I just was trying to get back to work, doing what the doctor said. The second time when I went, I knew that I really needed it. And luckily I couldn't get in right away. And so they let me
go to a meeting in the afternoon and a meeting in an evening. And it's crazy how after I started doing that, my brain's starting to slow down. And then I went to a meeting in the afternoon and then IOP at night. And I have to tell you, for me, that's like the perfect freaking combination of life. Seriously, if someone could just financially support me that way.
I know, if only we didn't have to work.
But now mentally, I feel I am the healthiest I've been in maybe my whole life. Yeah, maybe my entire life. And it's taken a long time to get there. It wasn't like it just happened.
Oh God, me too.
Yeah. And I'm a slow learner. And I think I've substituted so many things with drugs. First, it was just being a good mom. Then it was success. And then it was building a good reputation. And then I can get stuck in service sometimes because service makes me feel good, but to overcommit is not good. And so I've seen it go every way. And I think I've had more balance than I've had ever.
I think almost every recovering alcoholic that I know has struggled with balance.
Yeah.
Because we want to go all this way or all that way or push
and
all
we're so
that
smart.
way. Oh, we're so smart. We can figure it out. And I still think tomorrow I'm going to start this new thing because tomorrow I'll be different. I'm not different. And my past isn't different. But I have double-digit years again. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying my brother died.
Yeah.
Why did I relapse and was able to come back? It is such a miracle.
It is.
And my brain can't figure it out. And why do I look at, and I love old movies, I look at a Greta Garbo movie and I go, oh, I want the dress cut on the bias in the 1920s. But most of all, look at that champagne. The dress and the champagne glass. It's so elegant. I want that champagne. I still have it. I have a little tweak that's in there.
Yeah.
A little creature who goes, oh, that looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you.
It'll laugh at it a little bit, but still it takes people down.
There is in my mind, that there's still that elegance and that sophistication.
Yes, exactly. And ritual.
And I've made it. I'm in my smoking jacket with my martini glass
like Cary
and
Grant.
life is, and that first martini probably would be fine. But see, like you alluded to, but in your conversation, that there's never enough.
There's never enough. And I used to always think someday, and this is when I was in Sedona, crawling along my bottom, someday I'm going to be able to drink like a lady. And I discovered fine champagne and fine Chardonnay. But once I started on that champagne or Chardonnay, I would end up at 2 a.m. in the scrudgiest country bar outside of Sedona.
Yeah, exactly.
My sponsor's a champagne too. Yeah, that was, and he's bougie. He liked the champagne as well. Yeah.
When you have a family member, as I'm experiencing right now, and what I'm finding with myself is I'm seeing myself through them where
Absolutely.
I was. And it's putting me in kind of reliving those experiences, which is affecting me emotionally and even physically. Some of the anxiety, like I'm getting anxiety just imagining what they were there at today, because I can live that again in my head, because it's those times are so vivid for me at those dark times that I went through. And now I'm seeing them going through it. So it's dredging up those feelings in a way, and having like, how do you work through those times? How did you work through those times when you were experiencing those
I think
feelings?
that when it's someone who's truly close to you that you love, it's a lifetime of working through it. It's the horror and the denial and the guilt, survivor's guilt. And then I think if you stay in recovery, and you also, if you need you get the outside help you need, then it's because he was so much younger and he was my little buddy and I protected him. So my kid has died.
Yeah.
And I find that a spiritual program really helps. Not that I think, oh, little Louie's gone to Lala,
Right.
wherever. But I have found after the years of just shock and denial, and it's been 3.5 years, and I can finally put his little Christmas stocking up and not burst into tears. I don't understand, and I will never understand why I can be sober and he died so horribly. But I do believe that the people you love, you take with you all the time. There's a poem by
Absolutely.
John Donahue, the Irish priest poet, and he died probably of alcoholism, that you stop looking for your loved one out in the air and you find that he's waiting in the hearth of your soul for you. And that's a little woo, but every little bit of comfort and insight, he'll always be a part of my life.
Yeah.
I have 2 deeply close friends who didn't die of alcoholism, but who helped me through the program when I was a newbie. And they died too early of a heart attack out backpacking, of pancreatic cancer. And I was so devastated, but I find that I take them with me in my life. The little file is always open.
Yeah.
What would Martin think about this? Oh, Rodney would love that flower. And my sister says, oh, Louie would love that program.
No,
Yeah.
I love that. And Peter, different than Lacy. And I know you're a witness. So and this is just this last year, you're talking about the memories when I watched that TV show in the news, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had a former client from the escort service be on TV, and I had never dealt with any clients, not in all the years I've been sober. And this one isn't a good story. And not that there are any good stories, but there's better guys than other guys. And I called Peter freaking out. And I'm going to tell you, talking to you helped. And then I had IOP that night. And I didn't go into the details there because I wasn't going to say that, but I talked to the counselor, and that night they were like, tell us your life story. And I was like, not tonight. And then the next day I had therapy, and I will tell you, me and the therapist went through it. And part of my situation was the girl that didn't make it. We had some of the same things from this guy. She was a good student, and she got into cocaine after, and then ended up in prison from a good family, and she died. She never got over it. And I didn't die, and I didn't go back to prison. But there was a lot of survivor's remorse even, because
Absolutely.
Why did I get to survive and she didn't? And I didn't know about this girl until the story came on. So I had only known about me. I didn't know about her. I don't watch the news very often. And it was just overwhelming. And I like what you said. It's not something we get over. It's something we learn to live with. And the same for my sponsor. My first sponsor I had for 23 years. And he's the first person I ever told I was molested. And he died right after I told him. So I was like, oh, my secret's safe with him. But I put his ashes at the grotto. And we went to the grotto this year, to the sparkly lights. And I felt him everywhere. And I was like, oh my God, he gets to see these every year. And I go there when it's nice and it's clear out, because I feel like he has the best view of Portland.
Yeah.
But then this month in February, Advocacy Day is on February 13th. And it's his birthday. And I'm like, how ironic. How cool is this? And so many little things, like just things that I'd be like, he'd want me to do this. He'd be so happy that I did this.
Right.
He would be so thrilled I had time off, because he always told me I worked too much. He said it to me consistently. And yeah, so it's crazy, but I do think you have to keep working on it and different stuff comes up.
Yeah.
It stays a part of your life.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I, in my 70s, when I remember.
She looks so good for our listeners,
When I remember,
just so you know.
I can't remember what I had for breakfast, but I remember an incident in first grade. It's ridiculous, old person memory.
No, it's not, because I have that.
Some of the horrible moments and horrible things that I did have come from my drinking, have come back to me for the first time.
Wow. Yeah.
In 34, 35 years of not continuous sobriety, but sobriety. And then you have to go back and think through that. But overall, and I'm thinking of this image because we put my brother in the ocean in North Carolina illegally. That was his.
Glad to know I'm not the only one.
his beloved place. But I just think of the ocean, and I think of my brother's ashes. And I have tried to talk to two newish members of Lunch Bunch, the AA meeting that I go to, about that the disease is terminal. And I feel like I'm knocking my head against the wall because they just don't want to hear it. And I don't tell anybody about my brother's death unless they inquire a little bit. I'm not going to shake a finger and say, you too could.
Same. Yeah, same.
That's something I know that's just part of a lot of the programs out there that you can talk about yourself and what you would do. And so I try to do that with my family member, although it's harder as it continues on journey for me not to be oh
my God, I know. And these young men, and they're young men, so they're much younger than me, and I'm a grandma. So I just want to go, no, I'll help you. Get out. Don't live in your car. Come in my spare room. And my sister goes, nah, boundaries. But I want to take an IV, and I want to take it from me and shoot it into a younger person. And they'll get everything that I learned and everything that I learned the hard way. And then they'll get better and not die.
Yeah. No,
and you can't do that.
You can't. All you can do is share. And I get scared sometimes like that. I won't lie. I used to be very scared of the newcomer. It's only been in the last couple of years that I've been willing to hold your hand. I'm just being honest. If people were in their active addiction, it impacts me. And especially if it's in meth, it really impacts me. And you can't tell them, but I did with my daughter's father. I called him up and I said, do I call you and ask you for stuff? And he was like, no. I was like, do I lie to you? And he was like, no. I was like, you need to go back to treatment. No. And he did. He went back to treatment and I was like, oh my God, right? Thinking he's going to have a redo, but you never know what's going to happen. He got high one time coming out of treatment, and that's when he overdosed. And you just don't know.
My brother didn't make it 24 hours out of the second treatment.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You just don't know.
You don't know. All you can do is share your story and try to be available. But you have to take care of yourself. Because if your well runs dry, there ain't no water for anybody.
And I'm selfish, and I will tell you this, very selfish. When I see somebody that's died, even my daughter's father, I had to be like, I'm glad it wasn't you, Julie. One of us needs to be here to take care of this kid. And it makes me hunker down even more. But I am selfish in saying, I'm glad it's not me. And again, like we said, we don't know why, but I think keeping the program as a foundation in my life really helps my life go better. I know the year that I was away, like you said, I'm lucky I didn't have any urge to use, but I got a little mental. Got a little mental.
The year that I was away, my brain did a complete 180 and decided I was going to try drinking appropriately, of course.
Yeah, of course.
I thought that was a very important word. Thank God I'm back. And Peter, however I can help you if you need someone to talk to about
I appreciate
a sibling. It's really hard.
Yeah, they live too far away, but and my mom's here. We lost my father a couple years ago, and she's hitting me with, I can't get a hold of their mailbox is full. And have you heard from them? And I'm trying to not make her worry too much.
But then it's so hard, and then you see it clearly.
Also, it brings back to me, like, that was how she was with me back in the day. And what I thought was just, I'm doing to myself. I'm not hurting anybody else, because that was my mentality.
Right.
Why are you getting upset? It's just me. I'm doing it all to myself. Now I'm seeing how the effects of where I was back then affected my family. And so that's, hit me a little bit too, emotionally. And those feelings, all those feelings start to come up again that you don't really.
And then the worry, I think a lot of times I try not to, and this is true for me because I worry a lot. I can worry about the water bowl out there freezing and the birds not getting water. I'm dead serious.
Oh, absolutely. That keep me awake at night.
Like, for real, I can take it to the next level. And I've gotten better. Not being employed. What can I do for today? I've already done it for today. What I could do. I have a follow-up. And I have to stay in the moment, else I get just whoosh, right?
Absolutely.
And I go to extended family almost every night to calm my brain, or a different meeting. And it just calms my brain before snack and snuggle time at 8, which is with my dog. I call it snack and snuggle time. He gets a snack, we snuggle. And that's when I watch a TV show. And I watch some of the stupidest shows because they don't hurt my brain. Like Love is Blind. It's like the dumb shows, but dumb shows relax my brain. But it's amazing. And I told Peter before you came today. So like yesterday when we met with the executive directors, 3 of them had been to prison. And I said to Peter today before you got here, Lacy has a lot of similarities with you. Where some of them have is, I went to prison too. With me? But I told him when he said he was feeling uncomfortable and he couldn't figure out what it was. And then he told me it was this situation going on. And I said, we got the right guest for you today. Didn't I? I
yes,
did.
Yeah. It goes back to that phrase I always say is, there's a reason for everything. Everything has a reason. You just might not know what it is until it's revealed. And I learned that from somebody, mentor in my past, but I was going through that when I was in the midst of my drinking. Like, why me? Why am I feeling that I have to do this? Why am I in the middle of this? And I don't know why I had to go through what I went through. Why did Julie have to go to prison? Why did you have to lose your brother? We don't know why until it's revealed to us.
And you don't know. It can be someone who didn't lose a job, didn't lose a marriage, didn't supposedly lose their look good. You don't know what they're looking at inside.
Exactly.
The incomprehensible demoralization is in there, folks. Yeah. And whatever you look like on the outside, or if you went to prison or not, we don't know what people have been through.
Yeah.
I actually feel that in IOP, the second time, they told us to take the worst situation we had. And I put prison as one of the worst situations and to flip it. And so I did flip it. I was able to flip it. And I believe that prison saved my life and gave me the time out I needed to be sober, to be away from the life, because I only got high one time after that. And I went straight to the parole officer and told on myself because I didn't want to be high. I like Robert that was here yesterday, said, just put me in jail. I don't want to do this. And she was like, no, you've been so successful. And how about treatment again? And I went back to treatment. And that lady was the one who told me, Julie, I can get you clean, but you need a meaning for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. Find one you like.
Yeah.
But I do think instead of being mad that I went to prison, mad that they took my $250,000 plus, which I was resentful for a long time. It was in my first 4-step, and I don't know that I got over it right away. But now I am grateful that I went because I believe it saved my life. And when I was getting high was during the biggest time of AIDS and IV drug usage and sex. And again, why am I so blessed? I never used a dirty.
I know. I asked that over and over again. I never used a dirty needle,
and I never had sex without a condom in the escort service.
I don't understand why I didn't get HIV.
Yeah.
So, but I get it now. Mm-hmm. And I also, not that I get everything because I don't, but I do get that. And that's the belief system I've come to, but it took me 26 years to get there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But we never get anything. But the miracle of being sober is we can be open to so much growth and so much discovery.
Yeah. People who say they're recovered, I think, oh, you're stupid. I'm being honest. I think recovery is a process. And then when you stop growing, that's when you need to worry. Because I hear something, there might be 28 people, let's say, sharing in a meeting, and 26 of them didn't impact me. But there's that one.
There's that one, yeah.
There's that one that I will carry with me for a week and be like, And it's been Mindy lately. Mindy, the girl that goes to our meeting, I've heard her chair 3 times in 2 weeks, and I don't know why. And at my little meeting, she's been there too. And I told myself, don't you ever freaking feel sorry for yourself. She's endured so much more. And I just carry her with me lately. It's crazy. But
everybody's different. I sponsored a woman who basically was sold into prostitution at 13.
Oh.
And so I'm being very calm and listening to her story. And in the back of my brain, I'm going like, why are you in recovery? If I had your history, I'd be an axe murderer. And there is every different experience in the world, but you can still bring it to the program.
No, totally. I agree. And then what's your part in it? Where's that? And I had a hard time with the molestation from 5 to 11 because I didn't have a part in it. Mm-hmm. There was no wrong on my part.
Absolutely.
And that was the hardest one to process and led to the biggest resentments with my parents. Why they dropped me off at the nanny from 6 months to 11 years. Who does that? Who doesn't live with their parent? Mm-hmm. And so it was the hardest one. And again, through IOP, and because I was sober, thank God, I was able to process that one. I don't have to cry about it anymore. At first, I couldn't even talk about it. I couldn't breathe. When you're crying and you can't breathe, that's what it was really like for me. So again, it's growth. It's not perfect. And I will say EDMR therapy is the light therapy where they take you through the memories so that you can process them so they're not as vivid. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, processing them with a therapist was really good for me. It got me to where I can do it calmly. I wouldn't say that they're great still, but I don't have to, it doesn't have to ruin my week, my month, my...
Yeah.
You can get the help you need to thrive.
Yeah.
There will always be downsides to the world and what we think about this or that, but we are so blessed that we can get what we need to live our lives.
And thrive is a good word because I believe, even sitting here jobless, right? I am thriving more than I've ever thrived in so many ways. Welcoming the newcomer, not scared of them. Going to new meetings. I'm very comfortable at our meeting.
And look at what you're doing in this podcast.
Yeah.
We've put a lot of work in
pulling this together.
Yeah. It is like yesterday I had a real pinch myself moment. Am I really here with all of these people? And they're all heads of different organizations that are doing all this good. And they've all come from these different pasts that I can relate to. And here I am in my living room with 6 mics and this little device here. And I'm taking in and participating in. And it blows my mind that how this all came together. How did I get to meet Julie? And I go back and I list, and when I told my story on the show, I talked about how I went from here to here and ended up where I am today. And it's so mind-blowing to me. It's so hard to comprehend how this is
God is
come
good.
to be. It
all
really is.
It's hard to comprehend how I could and why I could be sober. Rationally, I could go, oh yeah, I did this and I did that. And I went to meetings and I sponsored people. But I'm not a particularly godly person. It's my miracle.
Yeah.
It is. Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. When the doctor told me only 8% of the people, me going into prostitution, being sex trafficked, and then the escort service, only 8% of the people make it to recovery, then go on to live a successful life. And I was like, wow. And I just thought again, how lucky am I? My gratitude is big, and I'm grateful. Like, it doesn't have to be around money anymore, even around success, even around a bougie job title. I can just be grateful that my kid wanted to be at a meeting with me last night. Like, I can break it down that simple. I just think that's so cool because like I said, I would have never gone to a meeting with my mother. I would have never told her my shit. When I got out of prison, they said I had to go to the transition out of prison program at the Y. And my mother said, why can't she come home and stay here? And they said, she's an addict. And my mother said, not Julie. I'm just, because I kept it away from her. When I would see her, I'd make sure I looked perfect. And because I lost weight and looked good, people were telling me how great I looked. They just didn't see my arms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you talked about, Lacy, what was going on. It's looking so perfect. And I prided myself. That was one of my things was I never was going to show up to work drunk, and I was never going to look out of sorts. I was dressed and weight and shaved and just all these things. But on the inside, I was that messy,
absolutely
horrible, messed up person.
I can still get that some way where I'm nervous about my look good of where we're going. I will tell you, even though it doesn't show on the outside, right? Because I can wing it. But when we were going to all the galas, I was like, oh my God, is my hair good enough to be here? Is my dress good enough to be here? And then I'd see somebody that was just flawless. And I'd be like, but like I said, there's times I think you go through that.
Yeah.
But it's not as much as it used to be. That's for sure.
No.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what's great is that we have the tools, at least I know I have the tools to deal with life on life's terms. That's a phrase we use all the time. But it's like you have to learn how to relearn how to do it without the help of that.
You do. And I have found that being sober for many years, I can drop into resentment, envy, jealousy, self-pity immediately. It's like falling off a log.
The victim.
Program says pause when agitated. No. Our family motto is panic first, think later. But I know that I'm doing this. And
that's it right there. It's just like the rumination, right? Now, I didn't even know what that word meant. I'm being honest. Before I went to IOP, I really did not know what that word meant. And when they explained it, I was like, I do that fucking shit all the time. But now I can recognize it. I can move to something as taking my dog for a walk in the sun and get out of it. Totally. I can clean the house and get out of it. So recognizing it and recognizing that you're doing it, I think is huge to helping it. It's just, I can go to, I'm unemployed and I'm going to be in a tent on the street, right? To, I have a warm house today, clean clothes, the sun is shining in the window, and break it down. It's a lot easier for me to stay in today than it used to be.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. But I feel that all humans have a dark side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there are definitely dark things going on in the world, but we get to navigate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without some grandiose insanity.
And life is going to be life. It's not always going to be happy. And I think people think sometimes when they get sober, woohoo, it's all going to be a pink cloud. It is not. I've dealt with the hardest things in recovery compared to when I was using. When I was using, I had money up the wazoo. Mm-hmm. I was different than some. And I was also the loneliest and unhappiest and didn't trust anyone in the world. But I had money. And it's crazy, but life is life, and you got to celebrate the good days and the bad. Right. As long as you're sober or you're in recovery, you're blessed. Yeah.
I think I do a lot better job of it too than I did back then.
I found that the things that I react in joy toward have expanded exponentially.
Me too.
And I tutor children and I drive them and nanny and whatnot. It's my retirement make ends meet job.
I love that.
And I'll stop and look at a bird and I go, oh, look at the hummingbird. And they're like, yeah. But the smaller things I can now see.
Yeah.
And most of them are free.
And most of them are free.
Exactly.
And most of them are a pleasant drop of joy.
Yeah.
And I wasn't open to that because I was obsessing about when I was going to get my next drink.
Exactly. Yeah. That's part of why the house, our yard, we've worked so hard to make it the way it is, to make it a little oasis, because I surround myself with that, because that's what gives me joy. And I go out back, and I know I sound like a crazy old squirrel lady, but I go out back and feed the squirrels, and I know I have names for them and everything. It's my thing, and they give me joy.
Yeah, I painted the walls of my apartment this bright color. It's called Matisse Gold.
Ooh.
And I wake up in the morning and I go, I love this color. Where did that come from? I never did that when I was drinking and using.
I love
Exactly.
that.
You find out what you love. You find out who you are, what your preferences are.
Yeah.
And
like I said, most of that shit is free.
absolutely.
Well, and also, I don't care so much about what others think. That was a big thing for me, because
Exactly.
part of my addiction was about my identity and trying to hide who I
Same.
was, and
Same.
wearing a mask to fit into every situation. And so now I'm like, yeah. So I have about 10 pounds extra. Okay, maybe 20. Okay, maybe 30. Whatever.
That's why my next job is so important. Not about, we talked about the money today. I am ready for the first time, and to not be the head of the company with the bougie title. I am so ready to not wear nylons to a meeting. I'm serious, to not wear clothes that I absolutely can't stand, to look good. I don't
to
want
fit the part.
to fit
Yeah.
the part. I want to wear the tennis shoes that I like, and the recovery t-shirt that I want, and mix my recovery with my business skills, but it doesn't have to be.
The radio Lacy would have thought it was demeaning, and I wouldn't want anybody to know if I were taking care of children for money.
Wow.
Really?
If I was cooking for them, because I wasn't, as my niece said, you were somebody.
Oh,
So the inference is that now I'm not somebody.
right.
Well, I'm going to tell you two things. The fact that somebody trusts you with their children is way more important than ever being on the radio, because I
absolutely.
trusted one person with my child because I was so scared because of what happened to me. I was a schizophrenic freak about it.
Yeah.
And that is like the biggest honor and blessing someone can give you. I'm being honest. And then AA. Oh my God.
Mhm.
That is so much more important. The example you set, how you share, how you step up in so many meetings, whether it's just being timer or saying you're going to clean the coffee cups. I'll be like, this lady doesn't need to have to do this, but she does.
Sometimes I just really like being a worker bee. I can do this. I understand how to clean cups. I understand to look and say, you've got a minute, because life is really complicated.
It is.
And I just want to be a part of.
Oh,
You are.
that's exactly the phrase I've used so many times. Be a part of. It's part of why I got into the trouble, is I wanted to be a part of, and I was not accepting who I was because society didn't accept who I was. And I hid that for so many years. Then I came out and was accepted, and not by everyone. But then I was an alcoholic on top of that. When I'm talking about being gay and then alcohol. And oh no, got to hide that, right?
Absolutely.
And so that was a hidden thing. And when I started going to meetings and stuff, I didn't share that with anybody at work and stuff. That anonymity was a great way to hide right behind. But then I realized that I've hidden all my life. I've worn masks all my life, worn costumes. I just want to be me. I want to be accepted, a part of, and be me. And so then anonymity just went away. It was like, no, this is who I am. And actually, why would I be wanting to hide something that's given me my life, back and given me so much? So it totally flipped it, or talking about flipping things around. And I find that through our show and the people that come on the show, some still want their anonymity, but a lot of people are proud to say, no, I work here and I am this person. And yes, I did go to prison and I had 42 counts of whatever, But here I am today. I want to be an example. And I think
Peter wasn't talking about me. I didn't have 40.
But being that example and making it okay to admit that you have a weakness and you have found a solution.
I always thought to get attention and love, I had to be really pitiful. And my mother was a lovely person, but she was a martyr. And she would not be able to handle it and would cry. And this was how she got love and attention. Yeah. And so I could be pitiful and people would pity me and be drawn toward me, which isn't the truth. Or I could be really special and I could be a star and they'd be attracted to my sparkling personality.
That was it for me.
But there was no reality. There was no in between. I was the piece of shit that should be pitied, or I was the star. And there was no normal person activity.
Yeah,
and
my mom.
I got to find that.
Yeah, if you didn't get an A, you weren't doing a good job.
Me too.
And there was no bottom line. There was no, it's okay, you did your best. I expect this. And I think just like with my jobs, always overachieved to get that approval. And it's so great. I don't do that with my child. I just accept her for her. And I'm so grateful. But it takes learning to do that. It really takes learning. So I want to ask you, because I admire you so much, talking to our listeners, what is something you would like to say to them that are listening, something that's just from Lacy, like any words of wisdom or good thoughts?
I would love to impart words of wisdom because that sounds like I'm so important.
You are, Chica.
But as I said, almost everything I think and do in sobriety and recovery and AA, it's so colored by my brother's death. And how could it not be? But what I would like to say to your listeners is there is absolutely nothing that you cannot get through sober, no matter how bad it is, no matter if you think you're. We've had people in our meeting who literally were dying and who
still showed up,
found some peace and help. I knew an older man who never got to the program, but white-knuckled it. And when he died, he had a bottle of whiskey and a big book on his night table. And he was tormented every day in his last months of whether he was going to drink or not. And I have never gotten over that image. You never have to do that. You never even have to think that. You can go to a meeting, you can go to an AA friend, you can share whatever your scary thinking is.
Yes.
You can share your joys, your sadnesses, and you learn how to listen to other people. You can make connections in your life, and you absolutely never have to do anything damaging to yourself again.
Yeah.
So that's what I would want to leave people
So
with.
true. Love that. Yeah.
I love that beyond. I'm lucky. My sponsor, every morning I talk to him and he'll ask, how you doing? And when I didn't get the job last Friday, I was like feeling a little rejected. And I let that last for a day. And I went to a meeting that night, shared, and I was truly over it by Saturday or Sunday.
Oh, that's one more thing. When you've been drinking, the maturity level is so low that it's like the 14-year-old I work with. I feel terrible today and it's never going to end. When you get some sobriety, that's temporary, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't feel like the victim. I felt like there's going to be a better opportunity. And my ego was hurt a little. How could you not want me? I've run companies before. And then I was like, it's not the fit.
Ego bruising is part of life.
It is. Yeah.
And feeling rejected does not last.
It doesn't. And I have to tell you, you don't have to get stuck in it either.
Nope.
Like I said, I felt it for a day and a half. And then I cleaned my house so that always when my house is super clean, I feel good because it's super clean. And then I'm worn out. And then I go to a meeting and I just feel complete. Like I've accomplished this. While I'm cleaning, I come up with my new game plan of the action I'm going to take, which I did. And yeah. And what's crazy is before the job decline or not getting hired, I had sent out an email to a different place, right? And as soon as I cleaned, processed it, went to a meeting, the other place said, sorry, we didn't get back to you sooner, Julie. We've been out of town. And sends an email. Can we talk to you on Thursday? Yeah. So as soon as I let it go, here comes another bird in the window.
There you go.
It's crazy. And you don't have to stay in it and you don't have to get in a rut. You can go through it, but yeah.
It is so hard not to stay in it sometimes. You just
is.
The dark clouds come in and I just want to, okay, get them. Just keep them, layer them. It's like, no.
Always be more dark clouds. Always be more bright, beautiful clouds.
It's life.
It really is.
This is me coming in older than you and whatnot. It takes a minute to get to that point. Like processing stuff is easier for me now.
Yeah.
But when I was sober at your time, the first 4 years, it was just enough for me to not use.
Right. Me too.
And to stay out of trouble. Okay. Yeah. So
I also keep that vision of when I was drinking, when I had a hard time and I used the drink to get through it, it never got better. It just made it worse.
Exactly.
It never does.
And
never.
So I have to keep that comes to me.
There's not real growth.
Exactly.
There's not real healing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can medicate in a lot of ways. I used to like to go shopping. I made a lot of money. But when I got the bill on the credit card, it diminished the fun I had. Does that make sense? And now I'm like, just don't get the bill. And yeah.
I'm sorry, that's too grown up.
Yeah. Now I'm going to tell you, when I first went to work at Sprint, because I wasn't using drugs, every time I got a bonus, I bought a pair of tennis shoes to match one of my shirts because I wasn't buying drugs. And my relation was tennis shoes were better than drugs. And now I'm like, you have enough fucking shoes, okay? Your shoe size hasn't changed. But it's crazy the different stuff we go through.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop blabbing.
I want to say thank you so much for being here, and your story in itself is hope and a blessing for those who will listen. So
I very much hope. And it was really a pleasure to hear more of your stories too.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
I'm going to tell you that not only thank you, but thanks for always being so supportive. Seriously, the group is my foundation and has been my foundation for a long time. And I don't know what I would do without that group. And you are part of that group. So thank you.
I found my home.
Me too.
Yeah,
I
did too. I said that a couple episodes back. It took me a while. And that was another thing we've talked about many times is if you're uncomfortable where you're at, or if you don't like the meeting that you're at, don't feel you have a connection there, there's another meeting.
Yeah, my meeting home is a weird ragtag group, and it is my home.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I tell you? I'm so glad they didn't turn me away when I showed up. Seriously,
because it was mostly men.
It was all men.
It was all gay
I was
men.
the first girl, and they were so kind to me and let me stay, except for making me read How It Works every single day for 30 days and raising my hand.
Nobody wants to read that.
I'm just saying, I was so happy on the 31st day that I didn't have to read fucking How It Works. I was like, preamble. But yeah, no. And they were kind to me, and I learned to trust them, and I knew they didn't want to sleep with me. It was great. And I didn't want to sleep with them. So I didn't have any confusion in my program. I still don't. So amen.
Thank you so much. Here we go.
Same time as Julie.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thanks for being here. And thanks everyone for listening. That's a wrap on today's episode. Thanks to each and every one of you for lending us your ears and hearts. Your engagement is what fuels our passion and keeps this podcast thriving.
We cherish the moments we share here and hope they resonate with you, whether you're on a daily commute, at the gym, or just taking a moment for yourself.
Make sure to head over to our website at realrecoverypodcast.com. While you're there, subscribe to our newsletter for the latest insights and uplifting stories from our community delivered straight to your inbox.
Click that subscribe button on your favorite podcast player too, so you can keep up with every new episode. It's your support that keeps our conversation alive and meaningful.
And if our stories have touched you, consider using the donate button on our site. Your contributions, no matter the size, are deeply appreciated. They help us continue our mission of sharing hope and healing.
Join us beyond the podcast and follow our journey on social media. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, and on X, formerly known as Twitter. All the links are on our site, so you can stay connected and be a part of the Real Recovery community every day.
Your likes, shares, and comments not only spread the message of recovery, but also remind us that we're all in this together.
So, until we meet again, remember that recovery is a journey, not a destination, and we'll be here to accompany you every step of the way to recovery, real recovery.
Thanks for listening.